My family laughed when I attended my father's funeral. Then the lawyer read the will and they couldn't laugh anymore. The envelope didn't have a return address. Just my name, Lucy, scrolled across the front in a stiff, all-too-familiar hand. I nearly threw it out with the rest of the junk mail, but something made me stop. My fingers trembled as I slid it open, already bracing myself for something I couldn't name. It was a funeral invitation. My father was dead. I stared at the paper, trying to feel something. Shock, sadness, anger. But everything inside me went still. It had been 10 years since I heard anything from the Carter family. A full decade since I left Richmond, and every judgmental glance, every cold shoulder, every cruel word behind. They'd made it clear I wasn't one of them anymore. I still remember the day I walked away. Ethan was just a baby, strapped into the back seat of my car while I drove with a busted lip and a suitcase full of baby clothes. I'd finally left the man who had broken more than bones. And instead of shelter, my father gave me shame. "You made your bed," he said. And that was it. But I didn't fall apart. I built a new life for us in Norfolk. Quiet, small, but safe. I got a job shelving books at the library, read bedtime stories to Ethan, learned how to breathe again. And even though my father never reached out, never apologized, never asked, I still sent money. Every month through old Mr. Harold next door, I made sure he had what he needed. I never told anyone, especially not Ethan. Now I held this letter in my hands, and all I could think was, why now? Why invite the daughter you cast aside? Ethan must have seen my face because he came up beside me and said quietly, "You gonna go?" I didn't answer. My throat was too tight. I just stared at the words on that crisp white paper. Then he added, "Maybe he left more than a will, Mom. Maybe he left something for you." I looked at my son, my anchor, my witness, and something in me shifted. I didn't know what I was walking into, but I knew this. If there was anything left to be said, I needed to hear it. So I folded the letter, packed my bags, and got ready to return to the place I swore I'd never see again. The chapel was smaller than I remembered. Wooden beams overhead, stained glass muted by a gray Richmond sky. It should have felt sacred, but the air inside was heavy sour with old perfume and even older resentment. I stepped through the double doors with Ethan beside me, his small hand tucked tight into mine. Heads turned before we'd made it halfway down the aisle. Whispers flared like sparks. Some didn't bother hiding their surprise. Others just stared like they were watching a ghost. And then I saw them. Emily and James stood near the front, black clothes tailored to perfection. Grief applied like makeup. Just enough to be noticed, not enough to smear. Emily's eyes locked on mine first. A flicker of disbelief. Then her lips curved, slow and sharp. "Well, well," she said under her breath, loud enough for the pews around her to catch every word. "Guess the prodigal daughter thinks there's money left." James let out a quiet chuckle, but his eyes didn't hold humor. Only judgment, the same kind I grew up with. I didn't answer. I just kept walking. Eyes forward, spine straight. Even though everything in me wanted to turn around and bolt, I found a seat at the far end of the last pew back row, as far from them as I could get. I didn't come for them. I didn't come for drama. I came to say goodbye. Ethan slid in beside me, clutching my hand tighter. I could feel his fingers trembling. I leaned down, slightly whispered, "It's okay, baby. We're just here to sit." But I knew it wasn't okay. Not really. From up front, the preacher cleared his throat. The service began. Prayers, a few shaky eulogies, the kind of polite mourning that sounds rehearsed. Hollow. My name wasn't mentioned once. No one even acknowledged I was his daughter. They skipped from childhood memories straight to Emily's tireless care. James's business trips home to help manage things. The narrative was neat, tidy, edited. My father had died the way he lived with the story that left me out. Ethan leaned his head against my shoulder, quiet and still. I stared ahead, but my ears burned with every sideways glance, every snicker hidden behind a tissue. I wasn't crying, but not because I didn't want to. I'd just done all my crying years ago. When the service ended, people began to file out. A few walked past me without a glance. One older cousin offered a stiff nod, then looked away. Emily brushed past like I didn't exist. James followed, stopping just long enough to look me in the eye. "Didn't think you had the guts to show up," he murmured. I met his gaze without flinching. "Neither did I." He smirked. "Don't get comfortable. It's not your story anymore." He turned and walked off, and I sat frozen in that pew, Ethan's head still resting against me. My hand wrapped around his like it was the only real thing in the room. They didn't know I wasn't there to be in the story. I was there to finish it. The Carter family home hadn't changed. Same white columns, same red brick, same ivy curling up the porch like it was choking something beneath. But stepping through the front door after 10 years felt like walking into a freezer. Cold, sterile, silent in all the wrong ways. The guests had already begun to gather. Cousins, old neighbors, a few business partners. I recognized most of the faces, though none of them looked at me directly. Their conversations dropped to whispers when I entered the room, but I could feel every sideways glance like a pinprick to the skin. Emily stood near the fireplace, swirling white wine in a crystal glass like it was a celebration, not a funeral. James leaned casually beside her, one hand tucked into his blazer pocket, the other holding a matching glass of red. They looked more like hosts at a cocktail party than children mourning their father. When they saw me enter with Ethan, James's mouth twisted into a grin. "Well, this won't take long," he said loud enough for half the room to hear. "She got cut out years ago." A few people chuckled uncomfortably. Others turned away like they'd just remembered something very important on the far wall. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. I kept my coat on even though the fire was crackling. Ethan stayed close to my side, his small fingers clutched tightly around mine. He didn't say a word, but I could feel his eyes scanning the room, watching every movement, reading the tension, the way only a child who's lived through silence and storm knows how. We took a seat near the back of the parlor, far from the hearth and the wine. I glanced around, soaking in the framed photos that still lined the walls. Emily in college, James on a boat family vacations to Virginia Beach. Not a single picture of me, not even from when we were kids. I wasn't surprised. I'd been erased with precision. Emily caught my eye and smiled. Not a kind smile, a territorial one, like I'd stepped into her kingdom uninvited. "You can sit if you want, Lucy," she said sweetly, "but don't expect a chapter." I gave her nothing. Ethan looked up at me then, and I saw it in his face. Not fear, not confusion. Focus. As if he was waiting like something important hadn't happened yet. And somehow I knew he was right. The room fell into an awkward hush when the front door creaked open again. William Harris stepped in like a man who knew exactly what kind of mess he was walking into. Same crisp gray suit, same leather briefcase, but this time he carried something else too. A small cedar box, polished smooth and clutched tight under one arm. Emily barely looked up from her wine. James glanced at his watch like he had somewhere better to be. "Thank you all for being here," Mr. Harris said, his voice low but commanding. Per Mr. Carter's instructions, we'll begin with a video message before moving on to the formal reading. The air in the room shifted, tightened. "A video," Emily scoffed, already irritated. "Can't we just get to the will? We all know what it says." James nodded. "Yeah, let's not drag this out. Some of us have flights." But Mr. Harris didn't flinch. He walked past them calmly and set the cedar box on the coffee table in front of the fireplace. Then he placed his briefcase next to it and began to open the latches. "It was your father's express wish," he said, "that this be viewed before any legal matters are addressed." Emily rolled her eyes. James muttered something under his breath. A few cousins leaned forward, curiosity piqued in spite of themselves. I stayed quiet, but Ethan sat up straighter beside me. His grip on my hand loosened just slightly. I looked down at him, and his face, soft open, was lit with something quiet but unmistakable. Hope. He didn't say a word, but I could feel it radiating from him like he already knew, like he'd been waiting for this moment longer than I had. And for the first time since I walked into that house, I didn't feel like I was alone. The screen flickered once, then again, before settling into focus. A faint hum filled the room. And then there he was. My father, older than I, remembered thinner too. His once proud shoulders had slumped into something softer. His eyes, always so sharp, so cold, retired, now shadowed beneath a weight I couldn't name. He sat at his old oak desk, the one that used to be off limits to everyone but him. Behind him, the painting of the river still hung on the wall, same as it had my whole childhood. He looked directly into the camera. "If Lucy is watching this," he began, voice low, gravelly, "I owe you the apology I never gave." Every breath in the room seemed to freeze. "I was wrong," he said. "I judged you for leaving a marriage I didn't understand. I thought you were weak. I thought you were selfish. I let myself believe what I wanted to believe because it was easier than asking questions I wasn't ready to hear." He paused, his fingers twitching slightly in his lap, a nervous tick I'd never seen before. "When you showed Osh Arcee up on my porch that night, bruised, shaking with your baby in your arms, I should have opened the door. I should have pulled you inside and said, 'You're safe now.' But I didn't. I let pride speak louder than love." A lump formed in my throat. Ethan reached for my hand again, his little fingers folding into mine. I didn't take my eyes off the screen. I told myself I was doing the right thing, that I was teaching you responsibility. But truth is, I was punishing you for leaving, for choosing yourself, for daring to be stronger than I ever taught you to be. Behind me, I heard the subtle shifting of chairs, someone exhaling too loudly. But I didn't turn. I couldn't. Not now. I found out the truth, Lucy. A few years ago, Harold came by with an envelope. Said it was from a friend who wanted to cover the heating bill. The handwriting. It didn't take long to figure it out. He leaned forward slightly, eyes glinting. "You sent money every month for years quietly. No credit, no contact, just care. Even when I gave you nothing in return, even when I pretended you didn't exist, you never stopped being my daughter. Even when I stopped being your father." My breath hitched. I blinked hard, trying to keep the tears from falling, but they were already there, hot, fast, silent. "I watched you from a distance," he continued. "Harold told me how you were doing about the library, about Ethan. Said he was a bright one. Said he looks at the world the way you do, with patience." He smiled, then a small, tired smile. "And it broke me. I don't deserve your forgiveness, Lucy. But if I can leave you with anything, let it be this. I was wrong. You were right. You did what I should have done a long time ago. You protected your child. You walked away from pain. And you built something better." He drew in a shaky breath. "I don't want to be remembered as the man who turned his back on his daughter. So I've changed the will. They don't know yet, but they will." Gasps fluttered around the room like startled birds. Someone cursed under their breath. Emily shifted sharply in her seat. James's jaw tensed. I barely heard them. "All I ever wanted was to be proud of my children," my father said. "And I am of you. Of the woman you became when I wasn't looking." The screen dimmed for a moment, then lit back up with his final words. "Tell Ethan thank you for giving me one last chance to be a father, even if it was from a distance." Then everything went black. Silence fell thicker than grief. No one dared to speak. But for the first time in 10 years, I heard my father loud and clear. The screen had barely gone dark when the murmurs began. Confusion, anger, denial. Mr. Harris didn't wait for silence. He adjusted his glasses, opened the leather folder on his lap, and said, "The video was to provide context. Now, per Mr. Carter's revised, notarized, and legally binding last will and testament, I will read the final allocations." Emily let out a sharp breath through her nose like she was preparing for war. James folded his arms across his chest and leaned back smug again like the video meant nothing. "To my daughter, Lucy Elaine Carter." Harris began, his voice steady, formal. I leave the Richmond family residence, its contents, and surrounding land in full. I felt the room turn toward me, neck-snapping disbelief flashing behind every set of eyes. My hands were frozen in my lap, Ethan still tucked inside mine. In addition, Harris continued, I leave to Lucy Carter the sum of $250,000 in liquid assets and all remaining balances in my retirement savings. The air shifted. He wasn't done. And to her son, Ethan Carter, I leave a college education trust in the amount of $100,000. My heart skipped. Ethan blinked up at me, his mouth slightly open, trying to understand what those words meant. I was still trying too. Harris paused, then flipped to the final page. To my son James and to my daughter Emily, I leave the following: a collection of family photo albums, my old military compass, and the Bible given to me by my mother when I turned 18. A gasp escaped from someone across the room. Emily shot to her feet. What? Her voice was sharp, high, already shaking. That's not possible. There must be a mistake. There is no mistake, Harris said, unbothered. Your father amended the will 2 years ago. The documents are certified, witnessed, and registered with the county. James stood, two jaw clenched tight. He was sick. He didn't know what he was doing. He knew exactly what he was doing. Harris replied, closing the folder with a soft snap. There was a moment of stunned silence before he spoke again, this time softer reading from a handwritten note attached to the will. He asked me to read this aloud. Let them remember who showed up when it mattered. Let them remember who stayed quiet but never stopped loving. This house should belong to the one person who never asked for anything and gave anyway. Emily stormed from the room. James followed after a pause, dragging disbelief like a shadow behind him. I didn't move. I couldn't. Not because I was in shock, but because for the first time in 10 years, I didn't feel erased. I felt chosen. You had to have tricked him. Emily snapped, her voice cracking as she spun toward me, wine glass still in hand but forgotten. There's no way he would have changed the will on his own. You must have. She stopped short, the accusation choking itself in her throat. I stood still. I didn't need to say a word. The video had already said everything. You manipulated him. She said again, louder, this time her face flushed with rage. After everything you did to this family, you walk back in here and act like some silent saint. This is pathetic. Ethan flinched beside me, and I rested a hand on his shoulder. He didn't need protecting. I just needed to remind myself that I was still grounded, still here. James stepped forward now, voice low but seething. We'll challenge it. There's no way this holds. He wasn't well. He was confused. Mr. Harris didn't blink. Your father's will was amended 2 years before his health declined. He was of sound mind. It's witness notarized and on file with the court. There is no legal ground for dispute. James opened his mouth to argue again, but stopped when he saw Harris's calm stare. The kind of stare that came with decades in courtrooms and zero patience for entitled theatrics. Around us, the rest of the room had gone still. Some of the cousins were whispering now, others slipping out through the side door coats, clutched awkwardly, faces turned away from mine. No one wanted to look me in the eye. Not out of hatred this time, but out of something closer to guilt, maybe shame. Emily's breathing had turned uneven. She looked like she didn't know whether to cry or scream. Her hands shook as she set the wine glass down too hard on the sideboard. This is a joke, she muttered. It's a damn joke. She turned and walked out without another word. James followed a few seconds later, his jaw clenched so tightly I thought it might crack. And just like that, the room emptied. They thought they'd buried me 10 years ago. But I was still here. And now they were the ones running. The room was quiet now. Not awkward, quiet, not tense, but still settled. I stayed where I was for a long moment. Ethan beside me, his small hand resting in mine. His grip had loosened, but he hadn't let go. Neither had I. No one else was left in the room. The murmur of retreating voices had faded down the hall. Doors clicked shut. Footsteps disappeared. I rose slowly and walked toward the corner of the room where the old leather reading chair sat tucked beneath the bay window. It was still there, unchanged, faded at the arms, creaking at the joints worn into the shape of the man who once called it his throne. I stared at it for a second, then reached down and gently brushed my fingertips along the top edge. "Goodbye, Dad," I whispered. "I forgive you." The words didn't catch in my throat. They didn't burn or twist. They just landed like they had been waiting to. Behind me, Ethan didn't speak. He didn't need to. The fireplace crackled softly, casting a warm orange glow over the room. The photographs on the mantel, the worn floorboards, even the air. It all felt different now. Not hostile, not heavy, just calm. I turned to look around the house one more time. For the first time in years, it didn't feel like a place that had banished me. It felt like a home that had finally exhaled. Maybe some ghosts don't leave. Maybe they just wait for the right words, and I had finally said mine. Weeks later, the house was quiet in a different way. The kind of quiet that comes after a storm. Not destruction, but stillness, peace. Ethan had claimed the sunroom for his art supplies. Every morning I found him there, sketching cardinals, blue jays, wrens, every bird he could spot in the backyard trees. His laughter sometimes echoed through the hallway, soft and bright filling spaces that used to ache. One morning, a letter arrived in a plain white envelope. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting. Harold Thompson. I opened it carefully. Hands steady, he cried. "Lucy," the note read. "The day he realized it was you. I'd never seen your father look so small. He carried that truth tone with him until the end." I folded the letter and stepped out onto the porch. Ethan sat on the top step sketch pad on his knees, tongue between his teeth as he shaded in a hawk's wings. I looked out over the lawn, the oak trees swaying gently in the breeze. He saw me in the end. I said aloud, not to anyone in particular. The girl they erased hadn't disappeared. She'd just been waiting for the truth to find its way home. Lucy learns that true strength lies in quiet resilience and unconditional love, even in the face of rejection and pain. Despite being cast out by her family for leaving an abusive marriage, she rebuilt a safe life for herself and Ethan, never seeking recognition or reconciliation. Her secret financial support for her father, despite his abandonment, reflects a deep capacity for forgiveness and duty that she never let bitterness erode. The revelation of her father's amended will, acknowledging her sacrifices and granting her the family home, validates her perseverance in silent sacrifices. Lucy's journey teaches her that healing doesn't require others' approval or acknowledgement. It comes from standing firm in one's truth and choices. Her father's belated apology and recognition in the video allow her to release years of hurt, finding closure not in material inheritance, but in knowing she was seen and valued in the end. This lesson empowers Lucy to forgive not for others, but for herself, transforming the Carter home from a place of banishment into one of peace. She realizes that her worth was never defined by her family's judgment, but by her unwavering commitment to love and protect her son.
The text came while I was stationed at Forward Operating Base Lightning in Afghanistan, 3 months into my second deployment. Diego, we sold the house. Your old room is gone tomorrow. House closes at 2 p.m. We're moving to Arizona to be near your sister. Deal with it, Mom. I stared at the message on my satellite phone, trying to process what I'd just read. They sold the house. My childhood home. The place I'd grown up, where my memories lived, where I'd planned to return after my military service. Without telling me. Without asking. Without even giving me a chance to say goodbye. I checked the time difference. It was evening back home in California. I called Mom immediately. Diego? Why are you calling so late? Mom, what do you mean you sold the house? We told you we were thinking about downsizing. Maria found us a nice place in Phoenix near her and the grandkids. You told me you were thinking about it. You didn't tell me you were doing it. Diego, you're deployed for another 9 months. What difference does it make? What difference does it make? Mom, that's our family home. It's our house, Diego. Your father and I made the decision that was best for us. But it's my home too. Diego, you're in the army. You live on bases. You don't need a house in California. I felt my anger rising, which was dangerous in a war zone where you need to stay calm and focused. Mom, I grew up in that house. I was planning to come back there when I finish my service. Come back to what? To live with your parents at 30 years old. To come back to my hometown. To start my civilian life somewhere familiar. Well, now you can start fresh somewhere new. Arizona has better weather anyway. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Mom, you sold my childhood home while I'm deployed overseas defending our country, and you're telling me to just deal with it? Diego, don't be dramatic. It's just a house. It's not just a house to me. Diego, we needed the money. Your father's retirement isn't enough and we want to be near Maria and the kids. How much money? $250,000. It's enough for us to buy a nice place in Phoenix and have some left over. $250,000. For the house I'd been secretly paying the mortgage on for 3 years. My family had no idea that when Dad lost his job in 2019 and they were facing foreclosure, I'd quietly purchased the house from the bank and continued letting them live there rent-free. To them, they were still the homeowners. In reality, I'd been their landlord for 3 years, making payments out of my military salary and combat pay. Mom, who's handling the sale? Some attorney downtown. Martinez and Associates. Diego, why are you asking all these questions? The house is sold. We sign papers tomorrow and move to Phoenix next week. What's the name of the law firm again? Martinez and Associates. Diego, you need to accept this. The house is gone. After hanging up, I sat in my bunk thinking about the situation. My parents were about to sell a house they didn't own to buyers who thought they were getting a clean title. The legal complications alone could destroy multiple families financially. I called my lawyer, Janet Rodriguez, who had handled the original purchase when I bought the house from the bank. Diego, how are you? Still keeping America safe? Janet, I need your help. My parents are trying to sell the house on Maple Street. The house you own. The house I own. Diego, your parents can't sell a house they don't own. Don't they know you bought it from the bank? They have no idea. I've been letting them think they still own it. Why? Because they were facing foreclosure and I didn't want them to feel bad about me having to bail them out. Diego, that was generous of you, but now you have a problem. I have a big problem. They think they're selling their house tomorrow. The buyers think they're buying a house with clear title. And I'm stuck in Afghanistan watching my family commit real estate fraud. Fraud might be too strong a word. More like a very complicated misunderstanding. Janet, can you stop the sale? I can stop it, but it's going to create a lot of problems for your parents and the buyers. More problems than completing a fraudulent real estate transaction? Good point. Diego, I'll call the title company first thing in the morning. And Janet. Yes. Be gentle with my parents. They honestly don't know they're doing anything wrong. The next morning, evening my time, Janet called back. Diego, I've got good news and bad news. Give me the bad news first. The bad news is that your parents were about 4 hours away from completing a sale that would have landed them in serious legal trouble. And the good news? The good news is that I stopped it. The title company was very grateful to avoid the lawsuit that would have come when the buyers discovered the title issue. How did my parents react? That's complicated. Your mother called me screaming about some lawyer trying to steal their house. I explained that the house belongs to Diego Martinez, and she said that was impossible because Diego Martinez is her son and he's in the army. And then I had to explain that her son Diego Martinez bought the house from the bank 3 years ago when they were facing foreclosure. How did she take that? She hung up on me. Then your father called back an hour later asking if this was some kind of mistake. What did you tell him? I told him that there was no mistake. That his son had purchased the house to prevent it from being foreclosed on, and that legally Diego Martinez Jr. had been the homeowner for 3 years. And he asked me why you hadn't told them. What did you say? I told him that was a question for his son, not his son's lawyer. That evening my phone rang. Diego, we need to talk. Hi, Dad. Diego, did you buy our house? Dad. I bought the house. When? 3 years ago when you were facing foreclosure. Diego, why didn't you tell us? Because I didn't want you to feel bad about needing help. Feel bad? Diego, we've been living in your house for 3 years without knowing it. You've been living in the family home. The ownership paperwork doesn't change that. Diego, this changes everything. How does it change everything? Because we can't sell a house that belongs to our son. Dad, why did you decide to sell the house without talking to me about it? Because we thought it was our house to sell. But even if it had been your house, don't you think you should have discussed it with me? Asked if I wanted to buy it from you? Given me a chance to say goodbye. Dad was quiet for a moment. Diego, you're right. We should have talked to you first. Dad, this is my childhood home. The place where I grew up. I was planning to come back there when I finish my military service. We didn't think. Diego, we didn't think you'd want to come back to California. Why not? Because you're seeing the world, you're having adventures. We thought you'd want to settle down somewhere more exciting than your old hometown. Dad, after spending years in war zones, all I want is to come home to somewhere familiar and peaceful. Diego, we made a mistake. What kind of mistake? We made a decision about your future without asking you what you wanted. And we didn't tell you we were selling the house because we were afraid you'd try to talk us out of it. Would I have tried to talk you out of it? Probably. And we would have listened to you, which would have meant staying in California instead of moving to Phoenix. And that would have been bad because Maria keeps saying we should move closer to the grandkids, and we thought this was our chance. Dad, Maria's opinion about where you should live is more important than my connection to our family home? No, Diego. No, it's not. Then why did you make this decision without including me? Because we're stupid, Diego. Because we thought we were being independent and making our own choices, but we were actually just making choices that hurt our son. Mom got on the phone. Diego, I'm sorry about the text message. Which part of the text message? The deal with it part. That was mean. Mom, the whole text was mean. You told me you sold my childhood home in a message that was 3 sentences long. I know. Diego, I was feeling guilty about not asking you first, so I tried to make it sound like it didn't matter. But it does matter to me. We see that now. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course. If you had known that I owned the house, would you have handled this differently? Diego, if we had known you owned the house, we would have talked to you before making any decisions. But you should have talked to me anyway, even if you owned the house. Why? Because it's my family home too. Because I'm your son and I love that house. Because I've been deployed for 3 months and getting a text that says, your old room is gone tomorrow, felt like getting kicked in the stomach. Mom started crying. Diego, we didn't think about how it would feel for you to get that news while you're so far away. No, you didn't think about it. Diego, what can we do to fix this? I don't know, Mom. The buyers probably found another house. You probably told Maria you were moving to Phoenix. Everything is complicated now. Diego, we'll figure it out. How? I don't know yet. But Diego, we'll figure it out because we love you and we made a mistake. A week later, Janet called with an update. Diego, your parents want to have a family meeting about the house. A family meeting? They want to discuss what should happen with the property, now that everyone knows the real ownership situation. What are the options? Option 1. You sell them the house for fair market value and they move to Phoenix as planned. What's option 2? Option 2. They stay in California and continue living in the house, but they start paying you rent. Option 3. Option 3. You keep the house, they move to Phoenix and you rent it out until you come back from deployment. Janet, what do my parents want to do? Honestly, I think they want you to tell them what you want to do. I think they realize they messed up by not including you in the decision, and now they're overcorrecting by not wanting to make any decisions at all. That's not helpful either. No, it's not. Diego, what do you want? I thought about it. What I wanted was for my family to understand that serving overseas doesn't mean I stop being part of the family or caring about our family home. What I wanted was for them to include me in major decisions instead of presenting them as done deals. But what I also wanted was for my parents to be happy and financially secure. Janet, set up a video call with all of us for this weekend. Saturday morning, I logged into a video conference from the base communication center. Mom, Dad, and Maria were all sitting around the kitchen table in the house I owned but had never told them I owned. Hi everyone. Diego. Mom looked like she'd been crying. We miss you so much. I miss you too, Mom. Diego, Dad said, we want to apologize again for how we handled the house situation. I appreciate the apology, Dad. Diego, Maria spoke up. I feel terrible. I've been pushing them to move to Phoenix, and I had no idea it would affect you. Maria, you didn't know about the ownership situation. But I should have realized that you'd have feelings about them selling the family home. Yeah, I do have feelings about it. Diego, Mom said, we want you to tell us what you want to do. It's your house, so it should be your decision. Actually, Mom, I don't think it should just be my decision. What do you mean? I mean that I bought this house to keep it in the family. Yes, I own it legally, but it's still our family home. So what does that mean? It means we should make decisions about it as a family. Hey. So what do you think we should do? I think you should move to Phoenix if that's what will make you happy. But then what happens to the house? Then I keep the house, and when I finish my military service I move back into it. Diego, that means we'll never come back to California. Mom, it also means that there will always be a family home here if you want to visit. Visit? Yeah. The house has 4 bedrooms. You can come stay whenever you want. Maria can bring the kids to see where their uncle grew up. Dad looked thoughtful. Diego, that actually sounds nice. And Dad, if you decide you hate Arizona and want to come back, the house will be here. You'd let us move back? Dad, it's our family home. Of course I'd let you move back. Diego, what about the money? We were counting on the sale money to buy a place in Phoenix. Dad, how much do you need for a place in Phoenix? We found a nice place for about $150,000. Hey, I'll give you $150,000 as a gift. Diego, you can't give us that much money. Why not? Because that's too generous. Dad, I've been saving combat pay for 3 years. I can afford to help my parents buy a house. But Diego, what if you need that money for your own house someday? Dad, I already have a house. I have our house. Mom started crying again. Diego, you'd really let us come back and visit? Mom, I'd love for you to come back and visit. I'd love for the grandkids to have sleepovers in their uncle's house. I'd love for Maria to see her old room. Diego, Maria said, I'm sorry I pushed them to move without thinking about how it would affect you. Maria, you want Mom and Dad closer to your family. That's not wrong. But I should have suggested they talk to you first. Yeah, you should have. But Maria, now they'll be closer to you and I'll have a connection to home. It works out. Diego, can I ask you something? Dad said. Sure. Why did you buy the house without telling us? Because you were facing foreclosure and I could prevent it. And because I knew if I told you, you'd feel guilty about accepting help. We would have felt guilty. And now we feel grateful. Diego, you saved our home when we couldn't save it ourselves. And you feel okay about me owning it? Diego, we feel proud that our son was successful enough to buy his parents' house when they needed help. 2 months later, my parents moved to Phoenix. They loved their new house, they loved being close to Maria and the grandkids, and they loved knowing they could come back to California anytime to visit their son's house that used to be their house. I loved knowing that when I finished my deployment, I'd be coming home to the place where I grew up, with all my memories intact and all my family welcome anytime. The house sale that almost happened taught all of us important lessons. My parents learned that being independent doesn't mean making major decisions without consulting family members who are affected. Maria learned that encouraging someone to move closer shouldn't mean pressuring them to cut ties with other places they love. And I learned that sometimes the most generous thing you can do is let people know when you're helping them, even if it makes them feel indebted to you. The text message that said, "Deal with it," became family legend, not because it was cruel, but because it marked the moment we all learned to deal with things together instead of making unilateral decisions that hurt people we love. When I got home from deployment 18 months later, the first thing I did was walk through every room of the house, touching the walls and remembering what it felt like to grow up there. The second thing I did was call my parents and invite them to come stay for Christmas. Not as former homeowners, but as beloved parents visiting their son's house that would always be their family home too. Sometimes the best way to own something is to share it with the people you love. And sometimes the best way to prevent your family from selling your childhood home is to already own it yourself. The house on Maple Street taught us all that ownership is complicated, but love is simple. And when you combine generous ownership with unconditional love, you get a family home that truly belongs to everyone who calls it home. The argument started over something stupid, a client meeting I'd handled differently than Dad wanted. But by the time it was over, 28 years of family dysfunction had exploded across the conference room of Mitchell and Associates. You're undermining everything I've built. Dad's voice echoed off the glass walls as the entire office pretended not to watch our family meltdown. I was trying to save the Henderson account, I said quietly. Their budget changed. I found a solution that worked for everyone. Without consulting me. He slammed his hand on the mahogany conference table. This is my company. I'm the account manager, Dad. It's literally my job to manage accounts. Your job is to do what I tell you to do. Mom sat at the end of the table saying nothing. She never said anything when Dad went nuclear. Just watched with that disappointed expression she'd perfected over the years. Richard, she finally spoke, her voice ice cold. Perhaps it's time we address the real problem. The real problem. Here it comes. Sarah has never respected this business, Mom continued. She thinks she knows better than you do. Better than we do. I've been working here for 6 years, Mom. I've brought in over $30 million in new business. And you've questioned every decision we've made for 6 years, Dad shot back. You think you're smarter than everyone else. I think I'm good at my job. Your job. Dad laughed bitterly. Your job exists because I created it for you. This company exists because I built it from nothing 30 years ago. I know that, Dad. Do you? Because you act like you're running the place. I looked around the conference room. The same room where I'd presented winning proposals to dozens of clients. Where I'd closed deals that kept this company profitable. Where I'd worked nights and weekends to meet deadlines that Dad had promised without consulting me. Maybe I should be running the place, I said quietly. The silence that followed was deafening. Dad's face went red. Excuse me. You heard me. Maybe someone who understands modern marketing should be making the decisions around here. Get out. Richard. Mom's voice held a warning tone. No. He pointed toward the door. Get out of my office. Dad, let's just calm down and... You're not my daughter anymore. The words hit like a physical blow. Get out of our business. Get out of our lives. I stared at him. At them. My parents who had just disowned me over a client meeting. Fine, I said. I'll pack my things. Sarah. Mom's voice was softer now, but not soft enough. No, Mom. You two have made your choice. I walked to my office, the corner office I'd earned through 6 years of excellent work, and started packing my personal items. Photos, awards, my coffee mug. The team I managed watched nervously as I cleared out my desk. Sarah, Jessica from accounting whispered, are you really leaving? Looks that way. But what about the Phoenix account? The Peterson project? I guess Dad will handle all of that himself. She looked worried. Sarah, those are our biggest accounts. You've been managing them for years. Not anymore. 20 minutes later, I was carrying a box of my belongings to my car. Dad stood in the lobby, arms crossed, watching me go. This is your choice, Sarah, he called out. Don't come crawling back when you realize what you've given up. I won't, I replied. Don't worry about that. I drove home to my downtown loft, poured a glass of wine and sat on my couch staring at the city lights. My phone had been buzzing with texts from colleagues, friends, even a few clients who'd heard about the blow-up. But the most interesting message was from my lawyer. Sarah, got your voicemail. Just to confirm, you want to terminate all Phoenix Enterprises contracts with Mitchell and Associates effective immediately. I smiled and typed back, yes. All contracts. Effective immediately. Phoenix Enterprises. My parents had no idea. For 3 years while working at Mitchell and Associates, I'd been building my own company. Nothing that competed with them directly, I wasn't stupid. But Phoenix Enterprises consulted for tech startups, handled digital marketing for e-commerce companies, managed social media campaigns for emerging brands. All the modern stuff that Dad dismissed as fad marketing. And for the past 2 years, Phoenix Enterprises had been subcontracting work to Mitchell and Associates. Big work. The kind of work that kept their doors open. You see, while Dad thought I was just his rebellious daughter who didn't respect his authority, I was actually his biggest client. The Henderson account that started today's fight? That was a Phoenix client that I'd brought to Mitchell and Associates because their traditional marketing approach complemented my digital strategy. The Peterson project Jessica mentioned? Phoenix account. The Morrison campaign that won Dad's biggest industry award last year? Phoenix account. In total, Phoenix Enterprises had funneled over $5 million worth of business to Mitchell and Associates in the past 2 years. And my parents had no idea because all the contracts were handled through my business partner, Marcus, who'd been signing off on everything while I managed the work internally. Dad thought he was throwing out his disappointing daughter. What he'd actually done was fire his biggest client. My phone rang at 8:30 the next morning. Marcus. Sarah, I just got a very interesting call from Mitchell and Associates. Oh. A Richard Mitchell called asking about our contract renewals. Apparently someone told him that Phoenix Enterprises might be reconsidering our relationship. Imagine that. Sarah, what do you want me to tell him? I sipped my coffee and looked out at the city skyline. Tell him that Phoenix Enterprises is terminating all contracts with Mitchell and Associates, effective immediately. All of them? Sarah, that's $5 million in annual business. All of them. Can I ask why? Let's just say they have management issues that conflict with our company values. Marcus was quiet for a moment. Sarah, this is going to hurt them badly. I know. Are you sure about this? Marcus, yesterday my father told me I wasn't his daughter anymore and threw me out of his business. I'm very sure. My phone started ringing 20 minutes later. Sarah. Jessica from Mitchell and Associates sounded panicked. Sarah, please tell me you're coming in today. I don't work there anymore, Jessica. Remember. Sarah, Mr. Mitchell is looking for the Phoenix files. He can't find any of the contracts or project details. Of course he couldn't. They were all on my computer, which had been wiped clean the moment IT revoked my access yesterday. I'm sure he'll figure it out. Sarah, Phoenix just canceled everything. Everything. The Henderson project, the Peterson campaign, the Morrison renewal. That's unfortunate. Sarah, this is 30% of our business. Was 30% of your business. Please, you have to talk to your dad. This is going to destroy the company. I hung up and poured myself another cup of coffee. The next call came from Mom. Sarah, we need to talk. Do we? Because yesterday you agreed that I wasn't your daughter anymore. Sarah, don't be dramatic. I'm not being dramatic, Mom. I'm being accurate. This Phoenix situation. What about it? Sarah, please don't pretend you don't know what's happening. Mom, I have no idea what you're talking about. There was a long pause. Sarah, are you Phoenix Enterprises? That's an interesting question, Mom. Why do you ask? Because they canceled $5 million in contracts the same day you left the company. Wow. What a coincidence. Sarah. Mom, I have to go. I have a business to run. Dad called an hour later. Sarah, we need to discuss this Phoenix situation. Hello to you too, Dad. Don't play games with me. Are you behind this? Behind what? You know damn well what. Dad, I'm confused. Yesterday you told me I wasn't your daughter and ordered me out of your business. Today you're calling me about your business problems. Which is it? Sarah, if you're Phoenix Enterprises. If I'm what? He was quiet for a long moment. Sarah, are you the owner of Phoenix Enterprises? Why would you think that? Because they pulled $5 million in business the day after I fired you. Dad, you didn't fire me. You disowned me. There's a difference. Sarah, please. The company can't survive losing Phoenix. That sounds like a management problem. Sarah. Dad, I distinctly remember you saying that I don't understand business. That I don't respect what you've built. That I think I'm smarter than everyone else. So why are you calling me about business problems? Because you are Phoenix Enterprises. Am I? Sarah, stop playing games. I'm not playing games, Dad. I'm living my life as someone who is no longer your daughter, remember? I hung up. By noon my phone was buzzing with messages from everyone at Mitchell and Associates. The panic was setting in. $5 million in annual revenue doesn't just disappear without consequences. Jessica texted, Sarah, please call me. Mr. Mitchell is in his office with the door closed. Your mom looks like she's been crying. Everyone's talking about layoffs. Marcus called to update me on the situation from Phoenix's side. Sarah, I've had 6 calls from Mitchell and Associates today. They're desperate. I'm sure they are. They're offering to match any competing bids to keep our business. There are no competing bids, Marcus. We're moving our subcontracting in-house. All of it. All of it. It's time Phoenix grew up. That afternoon I got an unexpected visitor. Mom showed up at my apartment building, looking smaller than I'd ever seen her. Sarah, may I come up? I don't know, Mom. Are we allowed to associate with people who aren't your daughter? Sarah, please. I buzzed her up. She sat on my couch, looking around my loft apartment with surprise. This is very nice. Thanks. Sarah, I need to ask you directly. Are you the owner of Phoenix Enterprises? Mom, what difference does it make? It makes a $5 million difference to our company. Your company. Not mine, remember. She was quiet for a moment. Sarah, how long have you owned Phoenix? Why do you care? Because if you've owned it for as long as we've been working with them. Then what, Mom? Then you've been supporting our company while we treated you like. Like what? Like you didn't matter. I sat down across from her. Mom, I've been building Phoenix for 3 years. For 2 of those years, I've been subcontracting work to Mitchell & Associates because I thought it would help the family business. Sarah. I brought you the Henderson account. I brought you Peterson, Morrison, Caldwell Industries, TechFlow Solutions. Do you want me to keep going? Her eyes filled with tears. You were helping us. I was trying to. But apparently I was also undermining everything Dad built and thinking I'm smarter than everyone else. Sarah, we made a mistake. I made a mistake. Your father made a mistake. What mistake was that? We never saw what you were actually doing. We only saw what we thought you were doing. And what did you think I was doing? Being difficult. Questioning authority. Not respecting the business. And what was I actually doing? She wiped her eyes. Building your own business while keeping ours alive. That's one way to put it. Sarah, will you consider coming back? Mom, yesterday Dad told me I wasn't his daughter anymore. He was angry. He didn't mean it. Didn't he? Because from where I'm sitting it seemed pretty definitive. Sarah, please. The company needs you. The company fired me. The company made a mistake. I looked at my mother. This woman who had raised me, supported Dad's business for 30 years, and never once stood up for me during his rages. Mom, what would coming back look like? You'd have your job back. Account manager, same salary. My old job. Well, yes. Working for Dad, taking orders, being treated like an underperforming employee instead of the person who's been keeping your doors open. Sarah, what do you want? I want respect. I want acknowledgement that I'm good at what I do. I want a seat at the table when decisions are made. You'll have that. Well, because yesterday when I tried to make a client decision, Dad screamed at me for undermining his authority. Things will be different. How? She was quiet for a long moment. Sarah, what would it take for you to bring Phoenix's business back? That's an interesting question, Mom. We can't survive without it. I know. Sarah, please. Tell me what you want. I stood up and walked to the window looking out at the city. I want Dad to apologize. Not just for yesterday, but for 6 years of treating me like I was incompetent. Okay. I want a partnership. Not a job, a partnership. 50% ownership of Mitchell & Associates. Sarah. I want the company name changed to Mitchell & Phoenix Associates. Your father will never. Then your father will lose his biggest client permanently. Mom was quiet for a long time. Sarah, you're talking about taking over half of everything he's built. Mom, I've been responsible for 30% of your revenue for 2 years. I've brought in over $30 million in new business in 6 years. I've managed your most important accounts. When exactly was I supposed to get credit for that? You're right. I want control over all digital marketing initiatives. I want to expand into the tech sector. I want to modernize everything about how this company operates. And if your father agrees to all of this, then Phoenix Enterprises will become Mitchell & Associates' exclusive partner. But Phoenix will be a subsidiary of the new company, not a client. Sarah, this is a complete restructuring. Yes, it is. Dad can accept that his daughter is a capable businesswoman who deserves a real stake in the company, or he can try to run Mitchell & Associates without me. Without my clients. Without my expertise. I'll talk to him. Mom, one more thing. Yes. I want him to understand that this isn't his charity case daughter asking for handouts. This is a successful business owner proposing a merger. Phoenix Enterprises has clients beyond what I've shared with Mitchell & Associates. We have our own office, our own team, our own reputation. How successful. Last year, Phoenix grossed $12 million in revenue. Her eyes widened. $12 million. $12 million. While I was working part-time hours because I was also managing accounts for Dad. Sarah, I had no idea. Of course you didn't. Neither of you ever asked what I did outside of the office. You assumed I went home and watched TV. We underestimated you. You ignored me. There's a difference. Dad called that evening. Sarah, your mother says you want to discuss terms. Hello, Dad. Let's not pretend this is a social call. You want 50% of my company. I want 50% of a company I've been propping up for 2 years. You haven't been propping up anything. You've been working here like everyone else. Dad, do you know what Phoenix Enterprises grossed last year? I don't care what. $12 million. There was silence on the other end. 12 million, Dad. While working part-time hours because I was also managing accounts for you. That's impossible. It's documented, Dad. Audited. Phoenix Enterprises is a real company with real clients and real revenue. Sarah. For 2 years I've been subcontracting business to Mitchell & Associates because I wanted to help the family company. But apparently helping the family company made me a disrespectful daughter who doesn't understand business. I didn't know about Phoenix. Biz, you never asked. In 6 years of working together, you never once asked what I did outside the office. You never asked about my goals, my skills, my ideas for growing the business. Sarah, this changes things. Does it? Yes. If you own a $12 million company. Then what, Dad? Then you're not the underperforming employee I thought you were. No, Dad. I'm not. Sarah, about yesterday. What about it? I was angry. I said things I didn't mean. Which things didn't you mean? The part about you not being my daughter. And the rest. Sarah, I built this company from nothing. For 30 years I've made every decision, handled every crisis, carried every responsibility. When you questioned my decisions, it felt like you were trying to take that away from me. I was trying to help you make better decisions. I see that now. Do you? Sarah, will you consider the partnership? Under what terms? 50-50 ownership. Mitchell and Phoenix Associates. You handle all digital marketing and tech sector development. And decision-making? Equal partners make equal decisions. And respect. Sarah, you've earned my respect. It just took me too long to realize it. 3 weeks later I moved back into Mitchell & Associates, but not as an employee. As a partner. My new office was across the hall from Dad's, same size, same view. The nameplate on the door read Sarah Phoenix Mitchell, Partner. Phoenix Enterprises became a wholly owned subsidiary of Mitchell & Phoenix Associates, bringing our total annual revenue to over $20 million. We hired 6 new employees and expanded into 3 new market sectors. But the most important change was the family dynamic. For the first time in my life, Dad saw me as an equal. He asked for my opinion. He considered my suggestions. He introduced me to clients as his business partner, not just his daughter. Mom took over operations management, something she'd been doing informally for years. The 3 of us became a real team, each contributing our strengths to build something bigger than any of us could have managed alone. 6 months after our explosive argument, Dad and I were in the conference room with a potential client, a tech startup looking for a comprehensive marketing strategy. Ms. Mitchell, the client said, Phoenix Enterprises came highly recommended. We're looking for someone who understands both traditional marketing and digital innovation. That's exactly what we do here, I replied. Mitchell & Phoenix Associates combines 30 years of traditional marketing excellence with cutting-edge digital strategies. And you handle both sides personally? I handle the digital strategy and implementation. My partner handles traditional marketing and client relations. The client looked confused. Your partner? Dad spoke up. That would be me, Richard Mitchell. Sarah's father and business partner. Father and business partner? Best of both worlds, Dad smiled. I taught her everything she knows about client relations and traditional marketing. She's teaching me everything I need to know about the future of this industry. After the client left with a signed contract, Dad turned to me. Sarah, that felt good. What felt good? Introducing you as my partner instead of my employee. It felt good to me too. Sarah, I owe you an apology. A real one. For what? For 28 years of not seeing who you really were. For thinking that being my daughter meant you couldn't also be my equal. Dad, we're good. No, we're not just good. We're great. And Sarah? Yeah. I'm proud of you. Not because you're successful, but because you're the kind of person who kept helping the family business even when the family wasn't treating you right. Thanks, Dad. And Sarah? I'm glad you're my daughter and my business partner. The company that almost fired me became the company I co-owned. The father who disowned me became the partner who respected me. And the family business that I'd supported in secret became the foundation for something bigger than any of us had imagined. Sometimes the best way to prove your worth isn't to argue or explain, it's to quietly remove your contribution and let people figure out what they've lost. Phoenix Enterprises taught my parents what I'd been trying to tell them for years. I wasn't their problem employee. I was their secret weapon. They just needed to learn how to see me clearly. And once they did, we built something amazing together.